Hey guys, I had some back and forth discussion with some people about SEO, and when it comes to high level, being able to optimize your pages to be able to rank well. And people were asking what should they do. There was other people asking for help with certain things, and I thought I'd go through and kind of just make one video that outlined the basics. This isn't going to go into extremely detailed SEO strategies or tactics, but I just wanted to give you some of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And to start out with, I've been a high-level user for a while now. I've got the white-labeled version, the white-labeled app. I spend a good bit of money with them every month. I have no problem with high-level. I actually love the automations of it. And so I don't want anybody to say, when I say that I don't recommend it from an SEO standpoint for your pages, I don't want that to sound like that I'm knocking on it anyway, because I'm not. I think that high-level has a fantastic the automations, the workflow builders. I think it's just a great tool. Where I think it really shines is in lead generation and being able to potentially build out like a funnel page and then run paid ads to it as an example for lead generation. I think it does really well there. But when it comes to SEO, it's just not made for that. You're asking it to do something that I don't personally feel that it's designed to do. And I think the WordPress integration will likely help a lot with that. And by the way, I don't really care for WordPress, but regardless, I think WordPress is far better suited for SEO. And so I thought I'd do a quick video showing you what is available, what's not available, and what some of the other elements mean that other people have had questions about in some of the discussions. So the first thing that I did was I just added a couple of these elements just to play around with it before I started the video. But I have a page, and this is all it's got, and then it's got some schema markup in it. I ran a basic page speed insight test. It performed pretty well. An 85 is pretty well for what I expected it on desktop. Mobile was at a 50, and so that's not nearly as good as I'd like to see, especially since I just don't have anything on this page. This should be able to load lightning fast. So that is something that I know has been an issue for many people in the group. They've said that the page speed, which is a huge ranking indicator for Google, that ranking signal just doesn't perform that well with high level. So that's out of the box. I know that there's been some efforts to fix that, and I may have the CNAME set up incorrectly. If they've done updates to it, that's fine. This isn't the be-all end-all. It's just one thing that I noticed. This page should be able to load extremely fast, but instead it's not. So that was one thing that I wanted to talk about. The next thing that I want to talk about that is not available with high level, or if it is, I don't know how to do it, and so I'd appreciate it if somebody could correct me on this, but there's really no way to make a sitemap, whether you're using any content management system, WordPress or any others. There's virtually always some way of controlling a menu hierarchy, and in that menu hierarchy you can have a plugin or an extension of some sort crawl it and then create a sitemap out of it, and you submit your sitemap into the Google Search Console, and it just basically gives Google a real clear roadmap on how to index your site, which pages to crawl, and etc. So I don't know of a way to do that in high level. That's huge. I suppose you could do it manually, but you don't really have FTP access to high level either, and so I don't know how you would host I don't know how you'd manually write the sitemap.xml file and then upload it in order to add it to Google Search Console. So that's a huge detriment to it. And on that same thread, there's really no way to create a menu hierarchy, or again, if there is, I don't know of it. I know that you can manually go adjust the URLs, which is huge. We'll come back to that in a minute. And so I guess you could work around it, but it's just extremely time consuming, and just something that most content management systems do exceedingly well. So those are the biggest two detriments to the SEO as far as systematically site-wide. Those are the big things. And by the way, I'm leaving technical SEO off the table because we don't have any access to it. That's on the development side. So whether it's code compression or minification, or your caching systems, your server configuration, we don't have any access to it. So I'm just leaving that off the table. This isn't really a review. It's just kind of the good, the bad, the ugly. The bad being no real menu hierarchy control that I can see anyway. No way to create a sitemap that I'm aware of. Those two things really, in my opinion, really kill you. As far as other things, there's no way to, and this is kind of technical SEO, but there's no way to give robots.txt a chance to explain to the bots, Google being the one that I'm most concerned with, how to crawl your site, what areas to crawl, what areas not to crawl. That's kind of a minor thing in the grand scheme of things, but I thought I'd dive into some other pieces of it that you can do. One thing that I was not aware of, I previously had stated that in a comment that you could not add schematic markup, schema markup, and that's actually not true. Playing around with it, I figured out how. If you go under settings and you go under tracking code, you actually do have access to the header code and the footer. And by the way, for schema, it doesn't matter if you put it in the header or the footer. I normally recommend the header just to make sure that it gets parsed out correctly. But you can put it in the footer, and as long as you don't have a massive page, then it should get run through with no problem. And I actually did look and see. I mean, I put a lot of schema markup in here, and this is not line wrapped, so this would be just pages after pages after pages. But I actually put it through a validation tool, and it did. I mean, look at how much schema is in here with areas served, and I mean, it's a lot of schema. I copied it from another site, and it worked fine. So I do have to give a thumbs up on that. It's kind of hard to find, or at least it was for me, tracking code. But when you go in there, you do have access to the header. So if you want to add schema markup, you can. So that's a plus. That's good. The thing that drew quite a few questions was in the settings SEO metadata. And you have your page title, your meta description, your meta keywords. You can do your author and your social image and that kind of stuff. And that's really cool. Social image is basically, it'll put it into open graph tags. It doesn't do anything for your SEO directly, but it does definitely help with your click-through ratios. So if somebody were to send a text message or a Skype message or put it on Facebook or whatever, if they were to post your URL, you can actually dictate what you want the image to be. So that really helps with your click-through ratio, and they make it very easy. I recommend using it. Let's start back here at the top. So whenever you have a site, your title is basically like, if I hover over, for instance, right here, you see Atlanta divorce lawyers, family law attorneys, Kessler and Solomon, however you say that, whatever. That's the title tag, and we'll dive into that in a second. And then a meta description is basically what comes in here. So find the best family attorney serving Atlanta, compare Georgia top lawyers, blah, blah, blah. If you don't set this, if you don't set either one of these, but specifically this one is what I'm talking about. If you don't set your meta description tag for a page and Google indexes it, then what will happen is Google will assign the first however many characters as your description in the SERPs, in the search engine result placement. So when you're here, it will just take the first however many characters it finds or what it thinks should be there, and it'll put it in here. That really, really, really hurts your click-through ratio, which indirectly does negatively impact your SEO as well. So your meta description really is designed to help your click-through ratio. Now, but by describing your description here, and a couple of side notes here. One, different categories of businesses have different amounts of characters that that Google will parse out. It also can change if it's mobile versus desktop. But so like a plumber might have 200 characters, and an attorney might have 160 or something like that. But basically, you can just Google whatever business category you're trying to rank in, and you can see how many characters you're really playing with, and that's what this meta description does. Now, there was a person who had responded saying that they actually think that this does have an impact on your SEO directly, as far as the keywords being weighted if they are in this tag. And I mean, I guess I can't deny that they do, but one of the examples as to why they believed that was that Google will actually bold some of the words in a description. So I thought I would shed some light on that. I first started learning SEO when I was tasked as an e-commerce director. We had a product catalog of about 75,000 SKUs, and a couple of us were tasked with creating an internal search engine for our product catalog. And one of the things that we learned about very quickly is what's called a synonyms table. And so I'm focusing on the organic SERPs. I'm not focusing on the ads or the GMB, but one of the things that you will find, and I'll find you an example. Here's an example. So I searched for best family attorney Atlanta, okay? And if I look through here, you'll see that the words best family law Atlanta, best family, Atlanta, you'll see that they're actually highlighting it. And so the idea behind this person's remark was that they think because it's highlighted here, that indicates that Google's putting some weight on it. And I can't necessarily deny that it is, but I also wanted to show you what's called a synonyms table. So you will see that in here, I know there's going to be some examples. Well, for instance, you see attorney is not highlighted, and it's a direct keyword that I was searching for. Here we go. So lawyers, custody lawyers, Well, child custody lawyers, child is not bolded, but custody lawyers is. And the reason that exists is because lawyers and attorneys and lawyers, it's the same thing. So Google and every other search engine uses what's called a synonyms table, where it associates two different words. And an example, when I was director of e-commerce, we were writing synonyms for things like notebook and laptop. If I search for a laptop or if I search for a notebook, it's going to return the same results because we didn't sell any like spiral bound notebooks people were looking for. They were actually looking for, actual laptops. So the words lawyers and attorneys would be synonyms. And so that's why you'll see words that are bolded in here. Does it have any weight on it? I'm not real sure. If it does, it is an extremely low ranking signal in my opinion. I think you are best suited by trying to improve your click-through ratio by manipulating your meta description, which again is right here. I'll move me out of the way. So meta description, that's optimize your click-through ratio right there. That's a good call to action. It's a way to get people to click. The next meta tag that you can control here is your meta keywords. Most SEOs agree that this has been widely ignored by most search engines for several years now. I generally don't do anything with the meta keywords. It doesn't hurt. It's certainly not ever going to hurt your SEO efforts. In fact, you'll see in a couple of these, they actually have, if I look for keywords, you actually see they have Atlanta divorce lawyers, family law attorneys, and then the name of the company. It doesn't hurt to put it in there, but it's mostly ignored by the search engines. And so, do whatever you want with it. You can skip it if you want to. Author is kind of the same way. It's really helpful if you have an influencer, but you can also use the same as schema markup to use that as well. So that leaves us with the big one, the title. Your title tag does have an absolute impact. It's a big impact on your SEO. So when I searched for best family attorney in Atlanta, one of the ones that was on the first page was this one. And by the way, they're mainly being outranked by all of these other expertise.com, super lawyers, Justia, Fine Law, Yelp, a lot of these directories. It drives me crazy. But anyway, the first real attorney that is actually ranking on the first page is this one. And if I hover over it, you'll see that they have Atlanta divorce lawyers, family law attorneys, and then their company name in the title. You can find that in the meta descriptions by looking for a title tag. And sorry, there's a little bit of a lag because I'm recording this as well. But so here's my title tag, and this is where that is set. Okay, and that's what you're seeing when you hover over it. And in high level, it's your title right here. This has a major impact on your SEO. In fact, different SEO trainings like Matt Diggity is a big one. He says the big three, I think he calls it the three kings, but the three places that I've always said you need exact match keywords. Your first one is your URL, which we'll come back to. Your second one is your title tag, which is controlled right here. And the third one is an H1 tag. So having an exact match right here inside for whatever you're trying to rank for, in this case, best family attorney Atlanta, having an exact match of those keywords in here is crucial. So that's great that you can control it. That's really where the majority of your SEO in the settings page for your SEO metadata, that's really where you're going to get it. If I were to encourage anybody if they were using high level, which for SEO, which I necessarily wouldn't recommend, but if they were going to, I would say set your title tags, optimize your meta description for your click-through ratios, but I wouldn't necessarily worry about keyword stuffing it. And then I would say put advanced schema markup in the metadata. I mean, I'm sorry, in the tracking code section, in the header section. So this isn't a tutorial on how to write schema markup, but advanced schema markup, not just your local business schema, but schema on every page really helps Google understand exactly what that page is about. It helps with your ranking. So that would be the big things that I would say you can control as far as what's like even semi-technical. The next part is your on page. So you need keywords to match in your URL. So it might be like, whatever, attorney.com. Let me just find one. We'll say practice areas, and we'll do child custody. So you see how if I search for best family attorney, well, family attorneys do child custody. So child custody visitation are keywords there. I would actually, if I was trying to rank for this, I would want to see family attorney Atlanta in there somewhere. So anyway, but that's what I mean by controlling your URL. And you can actually go into the settings of the page and you can set that in high level. So that is good. It's not the way that I would like to set it, but you can set it in there. So the next place, we already talked about your title tag. The next place is your header 1 or your H1 tag. So I think most people are probably familiar with what this is, but they may not be familiar with the way that it works. What I mean is this right here. If I highlight something and make it bold or whatever, this is considered to be what's called a WYSIWYG editor. WYSIWYG is an acronym for what you see is what you get. And a WYSIWYG editor offers us some really cool opportunities, but a lot of people misuse them, not just in high level, but in every WYSIWYG editor, WordPress or any other content management system. Because what they do is they see something and they're trying to make, like for instance, if I wanted this to be bigger, I would say, well, make it bigger by making it a header 1. And it's not available in here, but they would try to make it an H1 tag. What they're not understanding is the implications that has on the way your score is impacted for Google, your quantifiable score of your page. It impacts it greatly. You should have one header 1 tag on every page. That header 1 tag should have the keywords that you're trying to rank for. It's telling Google what the most important topic on that page is. And so here, Atlanta Child Custody and Visitation, if I inspect that, I'm sorry, again, there's a lag. I see that there's a header 1 tag, Atlanta Child Custody and Visitation Attorney. So that's obviously what they're trying to rank for here. This right here is going to be a supplementary topic, and it's an H2 tag. So while a WYSIWYG editor, people say, I want this to be big and I want this to be slightly smaller, they might be missing the implications that has for SEO. You're telling Google this is the most important thing on your page. And by the way, this mimics your title tag, as it should. You're telling it this is the most important thing. And then here is probably the next most important thing. You have another one right here, what to know about child custody. They're establishing themselves as a subject matter expert for child custody in this case. That's crucial for good authority and making Google understand that you are an authority on the topic. So you should always have one H1. Your H2s should support your H1s. And if you have H3s, they support your H2s, etc. But that's the way that the content should be structured. So the other two places that I recommend that you use the keywords you're trying to rank for are in the first and last sentence of your page. So your keywords should be used in your URL, in your title tag, in your H1, and then the first and the last sentence that you're trying to rank for. You can do some other things for SEO, like for instance, you can go in here and you can say for your image, if I wanted to set my alternate text, your alternate text, those alt tags were originally made for browsers for blind people because they couldn't see the images. And so what they would do is read the text. It was supposed to be a description of what the image is. Well, Google actually will consider that to be, it indexes that content. It basically learns more about your page. So you can put keywords in your alternate text. Be careful not to over optimize. A lot of times if I'm trying to rank for something that doesn't fit naturally in the language, for a page that I'm trying to rank for, like for Atlanta, for example. If I'm trying to rank in Atlanta, and I've used Atlanta too many times in here, I also want to rank for the zip code of 30328. I might put the 30328 in my alternate text. There's some other cool things you can do with it, but that's pretty much the way that I would use it. So I hope that helps clear up some of the things that you can do, that you can control well within high level. And then there's obviously some of the pitfalls of things you can't control well. I know that's going to get fixed with the WordPress integration, but that's kind of my take on it. When I've had a lot of people send me private messages asking my opinion on different pieces of high level. So I thought I'd just put it into one video and we'd get that over to you so that you could play around with it. There's probably guys that know a lot more about this than I do. I admittedly have not built a whole lot of pages inside of high level for the reasons that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it. And again, I think it shines best when you're using it for lead gen and you are pushing traffic to it through paid ads or some kind of similar means, not necessarily for the ranking in SEO. And I know that a lot of people would say, well, yeah, everything ranks the same because it's going to parse it out in a web language. And that's not incorrect. Some of the technical SEO pieces might argue from a performance standpoint, from code minification or compression, whatever. Let's assume that all that was equal. Let's assume that was all ironed out completely. You still don't have a decent way, at least not that I see, of being able to control your menu hierarchy and then creating a sitemap which you can submit to your Google Search Console. So For me, that's the reasons that I would encourage somebody to look for other systems if SEO is going to be the primary way that they drive traffic to their site. I hope that helps, guys. If you've got any questions about it, feel free to shoot me a private message anytime you want, and I'd be happy to give you my opinion. And I'd be happy to maybe point you to some other people that know more about whatever topics. If you have a question I don't know the answer to, I'd be happy to point you to somebody else as well. So I hope that helps, guys. Enjoy.